There are things the human mind simply refuses to process. It's a defense mechanism, I suppose. A mental circuit breaker that snaps shut when the eyes see something so unnatural, so violating, that to accept it as reality would mean shattering your entire understanding of the world. I remember the silence of the hallway that afternoon. It was Tuesday. The kind of gray, rainy Tuesday where the light never quite breaks through the clouds. The house was quiet. Too quiet for a home with a 6-week-old infant. I had just woken up from a nap, a rare, desperate hour of sleep my mother-in-law, Martha, had insisted I take. "Go rest your eyes, dear," she had said, her voice dripping with that sugary sweetness that used to fool me. "I'll watch the little prince. I know exactly what he needs." I walked down the carpeted hall in my socks. I didn't mean to be quiet, I was just tired. My body still felt foreign to me, aching and soft from birth, my shirt damp with milk because I was overdue to feed him. My son Leo. My beautiful, fragile Leo. The nursery door was cracked open just an inch. A sliver of amber light from the hallway spilled inside, cutting across the darkness of the room. I reached for the handle, expecting to see Martha rocking him, or maybe changing a diaper. I didn't hear crying. I heard a sound that made my own milk let down in a painful, instinctive rush. I heard the rhythmic, wet sound of a baby nursing. Suckle, swallow, breathe. I froze. Confusion washed over me first. I was the mother. I was the food source. There were no bottles prepared in the fridge. I was exclusively breastfeeding. I pushed the door open. Martha was sitting in the glider. Her blouse was unbuttoned. Her eyes were closed, her head thrown back in a look of disturbing, serene ecstasy. And there, pressed against her aged, dry breast, was my son. He was rooting, searching, desperate for comfort, latching onto his grandmother's skin. I felt the floor drop out from under me. It wasn't just disgust. It was a primal, violent violation. It was a theft of the most sacred bond I had. In that nursery, smelling of baby powder and lavender, I realized I hadn't let a grandmother into my home. I had let in a predator who wanted to consume my life. But to explain how we got to that horrifying moment in the nursery, I have to take you back. I have to tell you about the trap and how beautifully it was baited. My husband, Daniel, and I were happy. We were that boring, blissful couple you see at the farmer's market on Saturdays. We had been married for 4 years, focusing on our careers, fixing up our starter home, building a foundation before we added a third story to our lives. When the stick turned pink, we were over the moon. Daniel cried. He actually fell to his knees in the bathroom and wept with joy. He is, or was, a good man, gentle, soft-spoken, the kind of man who calls his mother every Sunday. And that was the thing. He loved his mother. And Martha, she loved him with a ferocity that I initially mistook for maternal warmth. Throughout my pregnancy, Martha was present but manageable. She lived 2 hours away. She knitted booties. She sent cards with checks inside for the crib. She called to check on my iron levels. It felt supportive. I didn't have a mother of my own. She passed when I was 20, so I leaned into Martha's attention. I was hungry for that maternal guidance. I wanted to be the daughter she never had. The cracks started to show in the 3rd trimester, but they were hairline fractures, barely visible. It was the comments. "You're carrying low, Sarah. It's definitely a boy." My boys always carried low. "Are you sure you want to paint the nursery sage green?" Daniel always responded better to blue. It soothes his temperament. "You're planning to breastfeed. Good. Formula makes them detached. Daniel was breastfed until he was 2, and look how close we are. I laughed them off. I told myself she was just old-fashioned. I told myself she was just excited to be a grandmother. Then Leo was born. It was a traumatic birth. 26 hours of labor, an emergency C-section, and a recovery that left me unable to walk without searing pain for weeks. I was broken, bleeding, and overwhelmed by a love so big it terrified me. 2 days after we brought Leo home, I was sitting on the sofa, weeping because I couldn't get the latch right. Daniel was pacing, helpless, trying to make tea, trying to fix a problem he couldn't understand. "Sarah," he said gently, sitting beside me, "this is too much. You're exhausted. You can barely stand up." "I'm fine," I lied, wiping my eyes. "I just need to figure this out." "Mom called," he said, hesitating. "She offered to come stay, just for a few weeks, to help with the cooking, the cleaning, so you can just focus on healing and bonding with Leo." I looked at him. I saw the exhaustion in his eyes, too. "She raised 3 boys, Sarah," he added. "She's a pro, and she really wants to help." I was so tired. The house was a mess. The laundry was piling up. The thought of someone handing me a hot meal and holding the baby while I showered felt like a lifeline. "Okay," I whispered. "Tell her to come." I signed the warrant myself. I invited her in. Martha arrived the next morning with 3 suitcases, 3 large, hard-shell suitcases. It looked like she was moving to Europe, not staying for 2 weeks to help with a newborn. "Oh, don't worry about these," she breezed, waving a manicured hand as Daniel hauled them up the stairs. "I just like to be prepared. I brought my own sheets. I know how busy you are. I didn't want you worrying about making up the guest bed." It sounded considerate. Why did it feel like an invasion? The first few days were wonderful. I hate to admit it, but they were. Martha was a whirlwind of efficiency. She cooked pot roasts and chicken soups. She scrubbed the bathrooms. She did the laundry. "You rest," she would say, ushering me back to the bedroom. "I'll bring Leo to you when he's hungry. Sleep, Sarah, you look dreadful." She always said it with a smile, but the word dreadful stuck in my ear like a burr. By the end of the first week, the dynamic shifted. The help started to feel like a takeover. I walked into the living room one afternoon to find her rearranging the furniture. "Martha," I asked, shifting Leo to my other shoulder, "what are you doing?" "Oh, the feng shui was all wrong for the baby," she said, pushing my favorite armchair into a corner. "The energy was flowing too fast by the window. He needs stillness." Daniel was very sensitive to energy as a baby. "But I like the chair by the window," I said weakly. "I like the light when I feed him." She stopped and looked at me. Her eyes were a pale, watery blue, and for a second they looked incredibly cold. "Sarah, dear," she said, her voice lowering to a patronizing coo. "This isn't about what you like anymore. It's about what's best for the baby. We all have to make sacrifices. I gave up my entire life for Daniel. That's what mothers do." She walked over and took Leo from my arms before I could protest. It was a smooth, practiced motion. She didn't ask, she just took him. "Come to Grandma," she crooned, turning her back to me. "Mommy is being selfish about her chair, but Grandma knows what you need." I stood there in the middle of my rearranged living room, my arms empty, feeling a sudden chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. "Mommy is being selfish." It was a joke. Surely it was a joke. But as I watched her rocking him, humming a lullaby I didn't know, I noticed something. She wasn't holding him like a grandmother holds a grandchild, out a little, looking at their face, admiring them. She was holding him tight against her chest, her chin resting on his head, possessing him. She was breathing him in. She was looking at me over her shoulder, not with warmth, but with a challenge. "This is mine," her eyes seemed to say. "I made the man who made this baby. Therefore, this baby is mine." I told myself it was the hormones. I told myself I was being ungrateful. But that night, as I lay in bed listening to Daniel snore, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was slowly disappearing in my own house. I didn't know, yet that disappearing was exactly what she had planned for me. They say a mother's intuition is a powerful thing. But when you are sleep-deprived, recovering from surgery, and swimming in a cocktail of postpartum hormones, intuition feels a lot like paranoia. And Martha, she was an expert at making me feel paranoid. The takeover wasn't an explosion. It was a slow, suffocating erosion. It was the way the tide eats away at a cliff, one wave at a time, until the ground just disappears beneath your feet. It started with the name. We named him Leo. It was my grandfather's name. Strong, simple, classic. Daniel had loved it. We had a wooden sign made for the nursery. Leo. But 3 days after the furniture incident, I walked into the kitchen to find Martha bouncing him on her hip while stirring a pot of marinara sauce. "Look at you," she cooed, pinching his cheek. "Look at my little Danny. Oh, you look just like your daddy. You're a little Daniel Jr., aren't you?" I paused in the doorway, gripping my empty water mug. "Martha. His name is Leo." She didn't look at me. She just kept stirring the sauce, the wooden spoon scraping against the metal pot. Scrape. Scrape. "Oh, I know, dear," she said lightly. "But Leo is such a harsh name. It doesn't fit his sweet face. He's a Miller man. He looks exactly like Daniel did at this age. It's uncanny. I can't help calling him Danny, it just slips out." "Please don't," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "It confuses him, and it bothers me." She finally turned. She smiled that tight, pitiful smile, the one you give a toddler who is crying over a broken cracker. "Sarah, honey," she sighed, "you're being sensitive again. He's 6 days old. He doesn't know his name. He only knows who loves him." She turned back to the baby. "Don't you, my little Danny? Grandma loves you best." Grandma loves you best. It was a throwaway line. People say it all the time. But the way she said it didn't sound like affection. It sounded like a statement of fact, a correction. Then came the food. I was breastfeeding. It was the one thing I could do that she couldn't. It was my superpower. It was the only time I felt truly connected to Leo, the only time she couldn't snatch him away. But she found ways to intrude even there. She would hover, literally hover. I would be on the sofa nursing, and she would stand directly over me, watching. Not watching with wonder, but watching with a critical, clinical eye. "Are you sure he's getting enough?" she would ask, frowning at my chest. "You look a little deflated. My milk came in like a flood. I soaked through shirts. Daniel was a big eater. You might be starving him." "He's gaining weight, Martha," I would say, pulling the blanket up to cover myself. "The pediatrician said he's perfect." "Doctors don't know everything," she would sniff. "A mother knows, and he looks hungry to me." One afternoon, I came out of the shower, the first shower I had taken in 2 days, to find her in the kitchen with Leo. She had her pinky finger in his mouth. He was sucking on it vigorously. "What are you doing?" I asked, rushing forward. "He was fussing," she said calmly, not removing her finger. He wanted comfort. You were in the shower so long, I had to improvise. See, he likes the taste of me. He likes the taste of me. My stomach churned. Please don't put your fingers in his mouth, Martha. Germs. She pulled her finger out with a wet pop. She wiped it on her apron, looking insulted. I am his grandmother, Sarah. I am not a stranger. My germs are his germs. We are the same blood. I felt like screaming. I wanted to grab my baby and run out the front door. But where would I go? I couldn't drive yet. Daniel was at work, and every time I tried to bring it up to him, the gaslighting began. That night after dinner, a roast that Martha made specifically for Daniel, leaving the vegetables plain for me because spices upset the baby's tummy through the milk. I tried to talk to him. We were in our bedroom. Martha was downstairs with Leo. She insisted on taking the late shift so we could have couple time. Daniel, I whispered, sitting on the edge of the bed. I think your mom is overstepping. Daniel groaned, rubbing his face. He looked exhausted. His job was stressful and having a newborn wasn't helping. Sarah, not tonight, please. She calls him Danny, I said. She told me I'm starving him. She put her finger in his mouth. It's weird, Daniel. She acts like he's hers. Daniel sat up, looking at me with a mix of pity and frustration. Baby, look at you. You're exhausted. You're hormonal. Mom is she's enthusiastic. She's waited 30 years for a grandchild. It's not enthusiasm, I insisted. It's obsession. She looks at me like I'm the incubator. That's not fair, Daniel said softly. She's doing our laundry. She's cooking. She's letting us sleep. Do you know how lucky we are? My coworkers are drowning and we have live-in help. He reached out and took my hand. She loves him, Sarah, and she loves me. She's just trying to be useful. Cut her some slack. For me, that was the trap. If I complained, I was the ungrateful wife making Daniel's life harder. If I stayed silent, I was the invisible mother losing her child. It's okay, I whispered, defeated. For you, I lay down. I fell into a heavy, restless sleep. I woke up at 3 a.m. It was the silence that woke me. Usually, Leo woke up every 2 hours like clockwork. I looked at the bassinet next to the bed. It was empty. Panic, cold and sharp, spiked in my chest. I sat up. Daniel! Daniel was snoring beside me. I scrambled out of bed. I ran into the hallway. The house was dark, but there was a flicker of blue light coming from the living room downstairs. The TV was on. I crept down the stairs. My heart was hammering in my throat. Thump, thump, thump. I turned the corner. Martha was sitting on the sofa. The TV was muted, casting a ghostly blue glow over the room. She was holding Leo, but she wasn't just holding him. She had her shirt pulled up. From where I stood, in the shadows of the staircase, I couldn't see everything. I saw the curve of her bare back. I saw Leo's head pressed against her chest. I saw her hand stroking his hair over and over again. She was rocking him, whispering something. I strained to hear. That's a good boy, she whispered. Her voice was low, husky. You don't need her, you have me. We don't need her, do we? Just you and me. Just like it used to be. I stepped on a creaky floorboard. Creak. Martha whipped her head around. She saw me standing there in my oversized nightgown, shivering. She didn't look guilty. She didn't scramble to cover up. She just calmly pulled her shirt down, smoothing the fabric. He woke up, she said, her voice flat. I didn't want to disturb you. Why? I stammered, pointing a shaking finger. Why was your shirt up? She stared at me. The blue light from the TV reflected in her eyes, making them look like glass beads. "Skin to skin," she said simply. "The nurses said it bonds the baby. It regulates his heart rate." I was just calming him down. "Give him to me," I said. My voice was a growl I didn't recognize. She stood up slowly. She walked over and placed him in my arms. "He's hungry," she said, "but he prefers me. He settles for me." She leaned in close. I could smell her breath, peppermint and old coffee. "You should sleep more, Sarah," she whispered. "You're starting to imagine things." She walked past me up the stairs, leaving me alone in the dark with my son. I looked down at Leo. He was asleep, but there was a wet spot on his cheek. Saliva. I wiped it off with my thumb, my entire body shaking. "Skin to skin," she said, but my gut screamed something else. My gut screamed that she was trying to become me. And Daniel? Daniel was asleep upstairs, dreaming of a happy family, while his mother was downstairs rewriting the script. That was the night I stopped sleeping. And that was the night I decided I needed proof. Because nobody, not even my husband, would believe what I thought was happening. I didn't sleep for the next 3 nights. I lay awake, staring at the baby monitor, watching the grainy, green-tinted image of my son sleeping. Every time Martha walked past the door, I stiffened like a guard dog. But sleep deprivation is a cruel torture. It breaks your mind. It makes you slow, compliant, and desperate. By Tuesday afternoon, I was hallucinating. I was seeing shadows move in the corners of the room. My body was aching, my breasts were engorged and painful, and my head felt like it was stuffed with cotton. Martha found me in the kitchen, staring at a half-eaten piece of toast. "Sarah," she said, her voice surprisingly gentle. "You look like a corpse, you're shaking." I looked at my hands, they were trembling. "I'm fine," I mumbled. "Just tired." "You're not fine," she said firmly. "You're crashing, and it's affecting the milk. Stress makes the milk sour, you know. Leo won't take it if it tastes like adrenaline." She walked over and put a hand on my shoulder. Her hand was warm. For a second, I leaned into it. I wanted a mother so badly. I wanted someone to just take care of me. "Go upstairs," she commanded softly. "Take a nap, just 2 hours, I'll watch him. I promise I won't wake you unless the house is burning down." "I don't know." I hesitated. "Do it for Daniel," she said, playing her trump card. "He's worried sick about you. If you get sick, who takes care of the baby? Go, sleep." I was too weak to fight. I walked up the stairs. I collapsed onto my bed without even taking off my nursing bra. I fell into a deep, black, dreamless hole. I slept for exactly 90 minutes. I woke up to the sound of rain lashing against the window pane. Slap, slap, slap. My body woke up before my brain did. My chest was throbbing. It was feeding time. My shirt was damp with leaked milk, a cold, sticky reminder that my son needed me. I sat up, rubbing my eyes. The house was silent. Too silent. Usually, if Leo was awake, I could hear him cooing or fussing. If he was asleep, the monitor would be crackling with white noise. I looked at the monitor on the nightstand. It was off. Black screen. Panic spiked in my veins, that sharp electric jolt that wakes you up faster than caffeine. I scrambled out of bed. My socks slid on the hardwood floor as I rushed into the hallway. "Martha," I called out. My voice was hoarse, no answer. I walked toward the nursery. The door was cracked open just a sliver. A beam of amber light from the hallway lamp cut across the darkness inside. I didn't hear crying. I heard the sound. It's a sound every mother knows. It's written into our DNA. The rhythmic, wet, guttural sound of a hungry baby latching and swallowing. Suckle, gulp, breathe, suckle, gulp, breathe. My brain tried to make sense of it. Maybe she gave him a bottle, I thought. Maybe she found a stash of pumped milk I forgot about. But I knew there was no pumped milk. I had used the last bag yesterday. I reached for the door handle. My hand was shaking so badly the brass knob rattled. I pushed the door open. The scene inside was composed like a Renaissance painting from hell. The rocking chair was facing the window, away from the door, but I could see her reflection in the darkened glass. Martha was sitting there. Her head was thrown back, eyes closed, a look of serene, twisted bliss on her face. Her blouse, a floral silk button-down, was open. And my son, my 6-week-old son, was pressed against her chest. He was latching, he was nursing. I stood there for a heartbeat, paralyzed by the sheer impossibility of what I was seeing. My grandmother-in-law, my husband's mother, nursing my child. Then the paralysis broke. "Get away from HIM!" The scream ripped out of my throat. It wasn't a human sound. It was the sound of an animal whose den has been breached. Martha's eyes snapped open. She didn't jump. She didn't scream. She looked at me in the reflection of the window, and for a second she looked annoyed. Like I had interrupted a private moment, she slowly unlatched him. Pop. She turned the chair to face me. Her shirt was still open. Her breast, pale, veined, and unmistakably used, was exposed. "Sarah," she said, her voice calm. Dangerously calm. "Lower your voice, you'll scare him." "What are you doing?" I gagged. I physically gagged. Bile rose in my throat. "What the hell are you doing to my son?" I lunged forward. I grabbed Leo from her arms. I snatched him so hard he started to wail, a high, piercing shriek of confusion. I clutched him to my chest, backing away until my spine hit the changing table. I checked his mouth. I wiped his face frantically with the sleeve of my shirt, trying to scrub away the contact. "You're sick," I whispered, shaking. "You're sick." Martha buttoned her blouse. Her fingers were steady. She looked at me with a mix of pity and condescension. "He was hungry, Sarah," she said. "You were asleep. I couldn't find any bottles. He was screaming. I was just soothing him." "Soothing him?" I screamed. "You were breastfeeding him. You don't have milk, Martha. You're 60 years old. What is wrong with you?" She stood up. She smoothed her skirt. "It's called induced lactation," she said, as if discussing the weather. "I've been taking supplements, herbal teas, fenugreek. I did it for Daniel when he was a baby, and I'm doing it for Danny now." "His name is Leo," I shouted. "I have milk," she continued, ignoring me. "Rich milk, better than yours, probably. Yours is full of cortisol. Mine is pure love. I'm helping you, Sarah. You're so tired. I can feed him now. We can share him." We can share him. The room spun. The walls felt like they were closing in. "Get out," I said. "Get out of this room." "Don't be dramatic," she snapped, stepping toward me. "Give him back. He's not finished." "Don't touch him," I shrieked, shielding Leo with my body. "If you come near me, I swear to God, I will kill you." I meant it. In that moment, with the smell of her perfume and the image of her breast burned into my retinas, I was capable of murder. Suddenly, the front door downstairs slammed open. "Sarah, Mom!" It was Daniel. He was home early. He must have heard the screaming from the driveway. I heard his heavy footsteps pounding up the stairs. "Up here!" I yelled. "Daniel." "Help me." Martha didn't look scared. She looked disappointed. She looked like a chess player who had been forced to make a move too early. Daniel burst into the room. He was breathless, his tie askew. He looked from me, pressed against the wall, clutching the screaming baby, looking wild-eyed to his mother, standing calmly in the center of the room. "What is going on?" he shouted. "I could hear you from the street. Is Leo hurt? Ask her," I screamed, pointing at Martha with a trembling hand. "Ask your mother what she was doing." Daniel looked at Martha. "Mom," Martha sighed. She clasped her hands in front of her. She put on her reasonable voice. "Sarah is having an episode, Daniel," she said sadly. "Postpartum psychosis, I suspect. I came in to check on the baby, and she flew into a rage. She snatched him out of the crib and started screaming that I was trying to kill him." My jaw dropped. The lie was so smooth, so instant. "Liar!" I screamed. "She was nursing him, Daniel. She had her shirt open. She had her boob in his mouth." Daniel froze. He looked at me, then at his mother. A look of total confusion and revulsion crossed his face. "What?" he whispered. "Mom," Martha laughed, a short, dismissive laugh. "Oh, Daniel, really. Do you hear yourself? I'm his grandmother. That's disgusting. Sarah is hallucinating. She's sleep-deprived. Look at her." She gestured to me. I looked down at myself. My hair was matted. My shirt was stained with old milk and sweat. I was shaking uncontrollably. I looked crazy. "She needs help, Daniel," Martha said softly. "She's a danger to the baby. You need to take him from her." Daniel looked at me. His eyes were wide, filled with fear. But I couldn't tell who he was afraid of, me or the truth. He took a step toward me. "Sarah, give me Leo." "No," I whimpered, backing into the corner. "No, Daniel, please, believe me, she's lying. I saw it. I saw it." "Sarah, give me the baby," he said, his voice firmer. "You're shaking. You're going to drop him." "She was nursing him," I sobbed, tears finally spilling over. "She said she's taking supplements. She said she wants to share him." Daniel stopped. He looked back at his mother. "Supplements?" he asked. Martha's face twitched, just a fraction, a micro-expression of panic. "I take vitamins, Daniel," she said quickly. "For my bones." Sarah is twisting everything. "Check the trash," I gasped. "Check her bathroom trash. If she's taking lactation herbs, the bottles are there. Check them, Daniel." The room went silent. The only sound was Leo's whimpering. Daniel looked at his mother. For the first time in his life, he didn't look at her with adoration. He looked at her with suspicion. "Mom," he said slowly, "what is in your bathroom?" Martha stiffened. Her eyes narrowed into slits. The mask slipped. "I am trying to save this family," she hissed. "She is weak. She is failing him. Someone has to provide for that child." It wasn't a denial. Daniel looked like he had been punched in the gut. He stumbled back, his hand covering his mouth. "Oh my God," he whispered. "Oh my God." "Get her out," I said. My voice was cold now. The hysteria was gone, replaced by a deadly clarity. "Get her out of my house, Daniel, or I'm calling the police." There is a specific kind of silence that follows a catastrophe. It's not peaceful. It's the silence of a vacuum, sucking the air out of the room before the structure collapses. Daniel stood between us. He looked at his mother, the woman who had baked him cookies, the woman who had bandaged his knees, the woman he had worshipped his entire life. And for the first time, he didn't see Mom. He saw a stranger wearing his mother's face. "Get out," Daniel repeated. His voice wasn't loud. It was hollow. It sounded like it was coming from the bottom of a well. Martha's expression shifted. The mask of the concerned grandmother dissolved, replaced by a cold, hard sneer. She didn't look at him. She looked at me. She looked at the baby in my arms with a hunger that made my skin crawl. "You are making a mistake," she said, her voice icy. "She can't care for him, Daniel. Look at her. She's falling apart. When she drops him or starves him, don't come crying to me." "I said get out," Daniel roared. It was a sound I had never heard from him, a primal, guttural bark. He stepped forward, grabbing her arm, not gently. He gripped her bicep hard enough to wrinkle the silk of her blouse. "Pack your bags," he spat. "Now I'm driving you to the motel on the highway. You are not staying in this house one more second." Martha yanked her arm away. She smoothed her sleeve with exaggerated dignity. "I can drive myself," she sniffed. "I won't stay where I'm not appreciated." She turned and walked out of the nursery. She didn't look back. We heard her footsteps retreat down the hall, then the heavy thud of the guest room door closing. I sank onto the glider, the same chair she had violated just moments ago. I clutched Leo so tight I was afraid I might hurt him, but I couldn't loosen my grip. I needed to feel his heartbeat against mine. I needed to reclaim him. Daniel stood in the middle of the room, breathing hard. His hands were shaking at his sides. "Sarah," he whispered, turning to me, "the supplements, did you mean it?" "Check the bathroom," I said. My voice was dull. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind a cold, shivering shock. "She said she was taking things. Check her trash." Daniel nodded. He looked like a man marching to his own execution. He walked out of the nursery and down the hall to the guest bathroom. I sat there, rocking Leo, back and forth, back and forth. I listened. I heard the sound of a cabinet opening. I heard the rustle of a trash bag. And then I heard a sound that broke my heart and vindicated me all at once. I heard Daniel retch. It was a violent, wet sound. The sound of a body rejecting a truth too toxic to swallow. I stood up, my legs wobbling, and walked down the hall with Leo. I stood in the doorway of the guest bathroom. Daniel was hunched over the toilet, heaving. On the marble counter, scattered like confetti, were empty blister packs. I stepped closer. I read the foil backing. Domperidone, Fenugreek Max, Blessed Thistle. And there, sitting right next to her toothbrush, was a small, amber bottle with a handwritten label. Lactation Tea 3X Daily. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't a senile moment. It was a plan. She had been taking these pills for weeks, maybe months. She had started this before she even arrived at our house. She had packed these pills in her suitcase alongside her knitting needles and her night cream. She had come here with the express intention of becoming my son's mother. Daniel wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. He looked at the pills on the counter. Tears were streaming down his face, mixing with the sweat on his brow. "She planned it," he whispered, his voice cracking. She wanted to." He couldn't finish the sentence. The incestuous, predatory nature of it was too much. "She wanted to replace me," I said softly. "I'm sorry," Daniel sobbed, sliding down the wall until he hit the floor. He buried his face in his knees. "I'm so sorry, Sarah. You told me. You told me she was overstepping and I didn't listen. I made you feel crazy." "Get up, Daniel," I said. I wasn't angry at him anymore. I didn't have the energy for anger. I was in survival mode. "Get up," I repeated, shifting Leo to my hip. "Make sure she leaves. Watch her pack. Check her bags. Make sure she doesn't take anything of his, not a pacifier, not a sock. Nothing. Daniel looked up at me. He saw the steel in my eyes. He nodded, wiping his face. He stood up, looking 10 years older than he had that morning. "Okay," he said. "Okay." The next hour was a blur of slamming doors and tense silence. I stayed in our bedroom with the door locked, holding Leo. I listened to the sounds of her departure, the zipper of a suitcase, the clatter of shoes being thrown into a bag. I heard her voice once, sharp and loud from the foyer. "You're choosing a woman you've known for 5 years over the woman who gave you life. She'll leave you, Daniel, and then you'll come crawling back." "Get out, Mom," Daniel's voice replied. It was low and dangerous. Then the front door opened and slammed shut. Boom. The sound echoed through the house like a gunshot. Then the sound of her car engine starting, tires crunching on gravel, fading away. Silence rushed back into the house. But it wasn't the peaceful silence of before. It was the silence of a crime scene. Daniel came upstairs. He knocked softly on the bedroom door. "She's gone," he said through the wood. "I took her key." I unlocked the door. Daniel stood there. He looked wrecked, but I couldn't comfort him yet. I had work to do. "Throw it away," I said. "What?" "The chair," I said. "The glider in the nursery. Throw it away, burn it. I don't care, but get it out of my house." "I never want to see it again." Daniel nodded. "Consider it done." "And the sheets," I continued, my voice trembling now. "The sheets on the guest bed, the towels she used, all of it, trash." I walked past him into the bathroom. I turned on the bathwater. I made it hot. I stripped Leo out of his onesie. I stripped myself out of my milk-stained clothes. I got into the tub with my son. I scrubbed him. I used the baby wash, the one that smelled like oat milk and honey, and I washed every inch of him. I washed his hair. I washed his tiny hands. I washed his face where her skin had touched him. I scrubbed myself, too. I scrubbed until my skin was red and raw. I wanted to wash away the memory. I wanted to sterilize my life. Daniel came into the bathroom while I was drying Leo off. He was holding a heavy black trash bag. "The chair is on the curb," he said. "The garbage truck comes tomorrow. I put the bedding in the bag." He looked at Leo, clean and wrapped in a fresh white towel. He reached out a hand to touch his son's head, then pulled it back, as if afraid he was contaminated too. "I called the locksmith," he said. "They're coming in an hour to change the deadbolts." "Good," I said. I looked at my husband, the man who had been caught in the middle. "Daniel," I said, "you saw the pills. You saw her." "I know," he said, his voice thick. "This isn't just overstepping," I said. "This is sickness. She can never come back here. She can never see him again. Do you understand?" Daniel looked at me. He looked at the empty space in the mirror where his mother used to be in his life. "I know," he whispered. "She's dead to me." It was the right answer. But as I looked at his shattered face, I knew that saying it and living it were two different things. Martha wasn't the kind of woman who just disappeared. She was an infestation. We had tented the house, but the termites were still in the foundation. I kissed Leo's head. He smelled like soap and safety. "We need to check the cameras," I said suddenly. "What?" Daniel blinked. "The nanny cam," I said. "We set one up in the living room last week. The one you use to check on the dogs when we're out." Daniel's face went pale. We hadn't checked it because we were home, but it recorded on a loop. If she did this today... I trailed off, the horror rising in my throat again. "We need to know how long. We need to know what else she did." Daniel looked like he was going to be sick again, but he pulled his phone out of his pocket. "Okay," he said. "Let's look." We sat on the edge of the tub, huddled over the small screen of his phone, and we pressed play on the footage from yesterday. And what we saw made the breastfeeding incident look like just the tip of the iceberg. Technology is a strange thing. We invite it into our homes for convenience, to check on the dogs, to see who is at the front door. We never expect it to become the star witness in the trial of our own lives. We sat on the edge of the bathtub, the water in the tub slowly draining away with a gurgling sound that seemed too loud in the silence. Daniel held the phone. His thumb hovered over the timeline. "Yesterday," I whispered. "Start with yesterday morning while I was sleeping." He scrolled back. The timestamp read 10:14 a.m. On the small screen, we saw the living room in grainy high definition. Martha walked into the frame. She was holding Leo. She walked over to the kitchen area, visible in the wide shot. She opened the fridge. I watched, holding my breath as she reached for the top shelf. That was where I kept my pumped milk, my liquid gold. The backup stash I had painstakingly collected, ounce by agonizing ounce, while crying from the pain of cracked nipples. Martha took a bottle of breast milk. She looked at it for a moment, tilting her head. Then she walked to the sink. She unscrewed the cap, and she poured it out. I watched my hard work, my son's food, disappear down the drain. She didn't just pour it out. She rinsed the bottle, filled it with water, and put it back in the fridge. "She was watering it down," Daniel whispered, horror coating his voice. "That's why he was so fussy. That's why he wasn't sleeping." "Keep watching," I said, my nails digging into his arm. On the screen, Martha dried her hands. She picked up Leo again. She sat down in the rocking chair, the one I had just told Daniel to burn. She began to rock him. And then, clear as day, she spoke to him. The camera picked up the audio. "SHH, SHH, my little Danny," she cooed. "Mommy's milk is no good. Mommy's milk makes you sick. See? She tries to poison you, but Grandma fixes it. Grandma cleans it out. You're hungry, aren't you? You're so hungry. That's good. That means you're ready for me." She was starving him. She was deliberately sabotaging his food supply, making him desperate with hunger, so that he would latch onto her out of pure survival instinct. It wasn't just weird. It wasn't just overstepping. It was abuse. Daniel dropped the phone. It hit the bath mat with a soft thud. He looked at me, his face pale and slick with sweat. "She was starving him," he choked out. "She was starving my son." I didn't cry. The time for crying was over. A cold, iron resolve settled in my chest. "We're going to the police," I said. "Now." We walked into the precinct at 8 p.m. I was carrying Leo in his carrier, refusing to let the handle leave my grip. Daniel carried the phone and the bag of herbal supplements we had fished out of the trash. The officer at the desk looked tired. He looked like he just wanted to finish his coffee and go home. "Domestic dispute?" he asked, clicking a pen. "Child endangerment," Daniel said. His voice was steady, but his eyes were wild. "And assault." We sat in a small interview room. We showed the officer the video. We showed him the pills. We explained the induced lactation. I watched the officer's face change. He went from bored skepticism to disturbed alertness. He paused the video at the moment Martha poured the milk down the sink. "This is..." He cleared his throat, looking uncomfortable. "This is highly unusual." "She's dangerous," I said. "She has a key to our house. We took it back, but she might have made copies." I want a restraining order, an emergency order of protection." "It's his mother," the officer noted, looking at Daniel. "Usually, judges are hesitant to bar grandparents without physical violence." "She starved an infant," Daniel said, leaning across the table. "She tampered with his food source to force a biological dependency on herself. If that's not violence, tell me what is." The officer looked at the desperate father in front of him. He nodded. "I'll write it up," he said. "We can get a temporary order tonight, but you need to know. These things get messy. Family cases always do." He had no idea. By the time we got home, the war had already started. Martha hadn't gone quietly into the night. She had gone on the offensive. Daniel's phone began to buzz the moment we walked in the door. Then mine, text messages, missed calls, voicemails. I looked at the notifications. "Aunt Linda, Sarah, I can't believe you would do this." "She is an old woman." "Cousin Mike, kicking your mom out on the street. Really, Dan?" "She says Sarah attacked her." "Sister-in-law, Martha called me sobbing. She said Sarah is having a psychotic break and tried to hurt the baby." "Daniel, you need to get Sarah help, not enable her delusions." She had spun the narrative. In her version, I was the one with postpartum psychosis. I was the danger. She was the martyr who had tried to save the baby, and I had thrown her out in a fit of jealous rage. Daniel stood in the kitchen, staring at his phone. The screen lit up his face in the dark. "She's telling everyone you're crazy," he said. "She's telling them you tried to drown the baby." "She's projecting," I said, putting Leo down in his bassinet. "She's accusing me of exactly what she would have done." "They believe her," Daniel said. "My aunt just texted me saying she's calling CPS." My blood ran cold. CPS, Child Protective Services. If they saw a hysterical mother and a concerned grandmother. "We have to stop this," I said. "Daniel, you have to stop this." Daniel looked at the phone. He looked at the barrage of messages calling his wife a monster and his mother a saint. He took a deep breath. "I'm going to end it," he said. He opened the family group chat. The Miller family tree. It had 30 members. Aunts, uncles, cousins, siblings. He didn't write a long defense. He didn't argue. He simply attached the video file. The clip of Martha pouring the milk down the sink. The clip of her whispering, "Mommy's milk makes you sick." And then he typed one sentence. "Anyone who defends this woman is no longer welcome in our lives. Watch the video. Turn the sound up." He hit send. We stood there in the kitchen watching the phone. Delivered. Read by Aunt Linda. Read by Cousin Mike. Read by Mom. The typing bubbles appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Then, silence. The phone stopped buzzing. The text stopped coming. One by one, the notifications changed. Aunt Linda left the conversation. Cousin Mike, "Oh my God." Sister-in-law, "Daniel, is that real?" Daniel didn't answer them. He blocked his mother's number. Then he turned to me. "It's done," he said. "They know." It wasn't a triumph. It felt like a funeral. He had just nuked his entire family dynamic to save ours. He had exposed his mother's deepest, darkest shame to the people whose opinion she valued most. It was the ultimate public consequence. Martha prided herself on her image, the perfect mother, the perfect matriarch. Daniel had just stripped her naked in front of the village. He put the phone down on the counter. He walked over to me and wrapped his arms around me. He was shaking. "I lost them," he whispered into my hair. "I probably lost all of them." "You didn't lose them," I said, holding him tight. You just chose the ones who matter. I looked out the window. A police cruiser rolled slowly past the house, doing the patrol we had requested. We were safe. The locks were changed. The order was filed. The truth was out. But as I looked at the dark street, I knew that safety came with a price. We were an island now, just the three of us. And Martha? Somewhere in a motel room, she was watching that video in the group chat, realizing that her son, her little Danny, had finally, irrevocably cut the cord. They say that time heals all wounds. I don't think that's true. Time doesn't heal the wound, it just turns it into a scar. And a scar is tough. A scar is skin that has been broken and knit back together stronger than it was before. It has been a year since the night we watched that video in the bathroom. A year since Daniel sent that text message that severed the branch from his family tree. I'm sitting on the back porch, drinking coffee, hot coffee, because I actually have time to drink it now. Leo is toddling through the grass, chasing a butterfly. He is chubby, happy, and loud. He has no memory of the hunger. He has no memory of the woman who tried to steal him. But I remember. The fallout from that night was nuclear. When the rest of the family watched that video, really watched it, the defense of Martha crumbled. It's one thing to defend a grandmother who is overbearing. It's another thing entirely to defend a woman who pours her grandchild's food down the sink to starve him into submission. Aunt Linda called the next day. She didn't apologize exactly. People like that rarely do, but she said, "I didn't know, I had no idea she was unwell." We didn't see Martha again. The emergency restraining order was granted. The judge, a stern woman with glasses on the end of her nose, looked at the video evidence and granted a 3-year order of protection. Martha didn't even show up to the hearing. She sent a lawyer to contest it, claiming she was just helping. But she didn't have the courage to face her son in court. We heard through the grapevine that she moved. She sold her house 2 towns over and moved to Florida to live in a 55-plus community. Apparently, she tells her new neighbors that her son and daughter-in-law are in a cult and won't let her see her grandbaby. Let her tell them whatever she wants. She can rewrite the story all day long, as long as she does it 1,000 miles away from my front door. The hardest part wasn't the legal battle. It was Daniel. He went through a grieving process that was painful to watch. He had to mourn a woman who was still alive. He had to accept that the mother he adored, the woman who raised him, was capable of monstrous selfishness. He started therapy. It was a condition of our marriage surviving. I remember one night, about 3 months after she left. I found Daniel sitting in the nursery, just staring at the empty corner where the glider used to be. "I keep wondering," he whispered. "Did she do it to me?" "Do what?" I asked, sitting beside him on the floor. "Starve me," he said, "to make me need her, to make me hers." It was a chilling thought. We'll never know the answer. But looking back at how enmeshed they were, how she made him feel guilty for every independent step he took, it makes you wonder. But we survived. We built a fortress around our little family. We changed the locks, we installed a security system, and we became fiercely protective of our peace. Daniel is a different father now. He isn't the passive man who just wants everyone to get along. He is a guardian. He checks the cameras. He screens the calls. He chose us. And every day he wakes up and chooses us again. As for me, I got my confidence back. It took a while. For months, I was terrified to leave Leo with anyone, even a babysitter. I had nightmares that I would walk into a room and find her there, rocking him in the dark. But slowly, the fear receded. I breastfed Leo until he was 14 months old. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Every feeding was a victory. Every time he looked up at me with those trusting eyes, it was a reclamation. I was feeding him my milk, my energy, my love. She tried to poison that bond. She tried to insert herself into the most primal connection a mother has. But she failed. Because biology is strong, but instinct is stronger. And a mother's instinct to protect her young is the most powerful force on earth. I look at Leo now, laughing as he falls into the grass. He is whole. He is safe. And the woman who tried to consume him is just a ghost story we will never tell him. You know, we are taught to respect our elders. We are taught that grandma knows best. We are told to be polite, to share, to not rock the boat. But sometimes the boat needs to be rocked. Sometimes the boat needs to be capsized to get the rats out. If I had listened to the voices telling me I was hormonal or ungrateful, my son would have suffered. If I had doubted my own eyes that day in the nursery, Martha would still be here, slowly erasing me from my own life. There is a lesson here, and I hope you hear it loud and clear. You are the mother, not your mother-in-law, not your aunt, not the neighbor with opinions. Your gut feeling is not paranoia. It is your biology screaming at you to pay attention. If someone makes you feel small in your own home, that is not help. That is control. If someone tries to rewrite your rules, that is not advice. That is a power play. And if someone ever tries to take your place, you have every right to roar. I didn't just kick my mother-in-law out because she broke a rule. I kicked her out because she broke the sacred covenant of trust. She tried to be the mother, but she forgot one thing. A real mother doesn't steal. A real mother gives. So I want to ask you, if you had walked into that nursery and seen what I saw, would you have called the police like we did? Or would you have handled it differently? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. And to all the new moms out there fighting for their space and their sanity, trust yourself. You are enough. You are exactly what your baby needs. Don't let anyone, not even grandma, take that away from you.